This project started as I tried to figure out how we were going to carry the wife's new recumbent trike along with our camper. So I wandered around the internet, couldn't find anything that really made sense for what we were going to do, and began to proof of concept an idea that I came up with. So as you see it hanging here on the camper, it looks like it just grew there, and that's how I wanted it to look. So I've included here different clips and different things that I've done to build it, and maybe you can do the same thing, because I think this would work with any camper that's got a flat top, and as long as there's room around the air conditioner or whatever, you should be able to redo this and make it your very own. So let's go build a trike carrier for a camper.
Well, today's the day. I've got some new material for this trike mounting device for our camper here. We've got an A-liner. It's, folds down flat, and of course I looked on YouTube and didn't find anything suitable for carrying it. So I made my own design here, and I'm going to pull off these temporary ones, which, if you look closely, is a stack up from a couple of old computer cases or something that they were throwing out at work. So I salvaged the aluminum, and so I've got here a plate that I siliconed to the top of the camper. So I did a lot of careful calculations trying to figure out what the best material and adhesive and all that. That's BS. I said more is better. I needed 2 inches, and so I had a piece of flat bar, and I said 6 inches times 2, 12 square inches of adhesion ought to be enough. So that's what I did. I made a plate, glued the plate on, then this piece bolts to it. The little cut in there is to use a tie wrap, a reusable tie wrap, to go through and hold through the spokes. And I'm going to show you how to do that. So here's a reusable tie wrap. You can see it's got the little nub that you get to release. These particular tie wraps I've used for 2 years. And it goes through, obviously it goes through the spokes when the wheel is in there. It comes around like this, uses up the tie wrap, and it snips in. I'm doing this one-handed with the iPhones. So anyway, that's it. And then when you want to take it apart, you just release the tab and then pull the tie wrap out, release the bike. Works wonderfully. We've gone on probably 20 trips with the trike and this system, but today I'm replacing these temporary ones with the permanent pieces. So we'll take a look at that. So here I am at the workbench, and I had my son order from McMaster Car this 2x3 aluminum tubing, and it's going to end up looking just like this guy when I'm done cutting it. And then I'm going to transfer some holes to get my holes in the right spot. So hang with me here and we'll go play. So here it is, kind of rough cut. So I used the chop saw to trim it off. It works okay, you just have to take it nice and slow. And if you don't go nice and slow, the saw is strong enough that it'll jump up and tear the stuff out of your hands. And you can see here that I have a new fence on this because the last fence broke when a piece of stock I was cutting too quickly jumped, and the force of the saw broke it. And of course they don't have a replacement part for this 25-year-old saw. So anyway, that's how I cut it. Then I went over to the bandsaw and I cut this piece over here on the bandsaw. So there's the, and I've got a nice coarse blade, and that cuts so easily with a bandsaw. So aluminum cuts like wood, and you just have to be really careful with it, and this thing works well. So what I'm going to do now is take it to the sander, get rid of all the burrs, and of course I'm going to open up the top. So, and that will be done on the bandsaw also. So you can see how easy that was, just cuts it like butter. So this is what you do when you screw up and you forget to drill the hole when you've got it supported. So I took a couple of scraps from the kindling area, and it's going to help stabilize that while I actually drill the hole. So I did a pilot hole with my 1/2 inch, then I'm going to follow it up with a 5/8 drill bit, so I'll have lots of room for the 1/2 inch tie wrap. So I moved the fence up nice and tight so that it'll help eliminate some of the desire to spin as I'm drilling through this hole. One side done, and I took the wood out so I didn't have to deal with that. And now I'm going to drill the other side, and then life will be good. I'll have that all taken care of there. So we'll get that hole drilled. Well, I had to flip the piece around because I found that this part right here was this part was going into there, and I was rubbing on the rail, so I had to flip her around to get the fit hole done. And there we are, all drilled out all the way through. So life is good, and we'll go on to the next stage. Well, here are the two pieces side by side. They look pretty close to the same, and so now actually the hardest part comes along. I need to transfer these holes that hold the bottom in, or hold the this bracket to the glued on piece. So let's get busy on that. And I came out to double check my hole pattern on this, and so I'm going to go inside and get the right two holes. Well, you're going to notice that these holes are not in the center, and that was a design feature by using scrap material. So I made this piece as a proof of concept, and so I cut out the middle, overlapped, and yep, it's ugly, but we're going to fix the ugly. And so then when this gets posted, the whole bike carrier will look like it grew there. I took my calipers and measured over and got kind of the center of it, and then I came over here using the poor man's Dicom, my Sharpie mark, and you can see that that's where my center of those holes are. So now I'm going to take the center the other way and drill them out. So here's the finished product. All the edges have been eased, smoothed up the cuts that people can see. I don't care about that so much. And I've got the holes drilled, and I just checked, and they're right spot on. So now we're going to go out and mount it, and we'll go on out here. I'm blessed with a great shop and walkout basement, and I just got done putting the camper back into its little hidey hole here, a Harbor Freight garage tent thingy that of course the fabric wore out in 7.5 months, and 17-foot sheet metal from the local pole barn place skinned it, and what a great little cheap spot. So I've got a little garage for the camper for keep it out of the sun and the wind and the rain, and I don't think I've got $500 into both iterations. The original Harbor Freight one I think was $179, maybe less than that. Oh yeah, 20% off that. And then I think the sheet metal was a little over $200, and then the screws were $30 or $40. So they got the trim screws that are self-drilling into the steel pipe, and little help from the boss, my wife, and the neighbor came over one day to give me a hand, and it's doing great. So anyway, here we are. A little side trip there. This is going to get put into place, and I'm going to magnetize my screwdriver with my Harbor Freight magnetizer and screw my screws in there. Ideally, I would love to get some stainless steel 3/8 quarter 20 button heads, and that would be where I really want to get, but we'll see if that ever happens. So there it is, in place, lined up pretty well, and I'll be ready to do the next one, and then the one back there. You can see that one right there has got a 6x6 or 6x8 white stanchion that I'm gonna get to. Well, there's a sad story about that. I managed to run the trailer underneath a walkway that was 4 inches too short, and ripped the trike off the top and peeled that particular 2x6 thing, and so tore up the roof a bit. So I went, of course, with overkill, because that's what men do. A little good, a lot better. And so I've got myself a big piece there. It's all glued down, and it's going to work just fine. I'm convinced of it. Here's part number 2. Took, of course, 1/3 the time because I've done one already, and I wasn't filming. So all I have to do now is transfer the holes, and life will be good here. So there's my holes. Now to drill out a 5/16 hole. Gives me adequate slop for my crude tool making skills and transferring it all. So there's the part, and the screws that I've got out there for it are too long, so I'm going to have to cut off some quarter 20s and make this a little bit easier to do and safer, so I don't puncture the roof going on the camper there. So that's the ultimate goal. So here's the setup. I put a nut on the screw, clamped it in my eBay Wilton vise, and now I'm shortening it up. That way when I unscrew the screw out of the nut, you end up with cleaning up the threads. So there it is in place. Nice big hole for the tie wrap, secured in place. So one more to go back there. Well, there's the last one installed there, and you'll notice the notch goes the opposite way. The front, the notches go that way because that's the direction I tighten up the tie wraps, so it puts a bit of tension on the tie wraps and the tires, whatever. And other than driving through low tunnels, it has performed perfectly. So just watch out for tunnels when you're doing it. Well, today I've decided to go over these tie wraps that I'm using here. And so I bought these from McMaster-Carr a couple of years ago. I don't know if they still have the same brand, but this is the reusable tie wrap, and I noticed when I was editing the video that it was not real clear, but you can see here how the little tab sticks out there. Well, you grab that with your finger, and same thing, wobbly iPhone videos here, but that's what I got. So when you do that, then I'm going to release it, and voila, it's gone. So now there's another style. This is my son's favorite style, And I do not have the McMaster car number on this, but it's a 1/2 inch tie wrap, and it has a slightly different take on the release button, which makes it much easier. So this one, you do that, and the tie wrap just releases. It's much easier. However, it's a 1/2 inch, and this one over here is 3/8, and I found the 3/8 to be easy to manipulate. But my kid was buying some more, so I had him get me a few too. So that's the reusable tie wrap. This one is definitely easier. I would like it if it was in 3/8, but I'm not sure that they had it in 3/8. So anyway, I had to bring the this one piece in, and because the 1/2 inch tie wrap was a little bit harder to work with, I had to raise this little notch a bit to make it easy to do it. And oh, by the way, I did pick up some stainless steel button head screws to hold my stuff down. So, well, anyway, that's it. Have fun if you decide to go ahead and adapt this to your situation.